Evening, folks. This is Jonah Elias Crow coming to you once again from WHAAINT Radio, somewhere out past the last good road, where the trees lean a little too close and the night don't ever seem to thin. Before we get into tonight's confession, I ought to answer a question that came through the mail slot this morning. No return address, no stamp neither, just my name written on the front in pencil. The question was simple enough. Jonah, how do you eat? Well, friend, I eat like any other bachelor trapped in a haunted radio station outside of time. Poorly, and with suspicion. There's a vending machine down the hall that still gives up crackers, moon pies, and little cans of sausage if you press the buttons right. There's coffee in the break room that never runs out, though I've stopped asking where it comes from. Once in a while, I'll find something warm wrapped in wax paper on the counter. Biscuit, cornbread, fried pie. Only thing is, sometimes the wrappers got dates on them I don't recognize. Sometimes they got no dates at all. And one time I pulled a can of peaches out of there with my mama's handwriting on the label. I put that one back. And see, that'd be comfort to some men. But comfort's dangerous in this place. Comfort is how the holler gets its hand around your wrist. Now, I need to say something. Last time I was on this microphone, something came through the signal that wasn't supposed to. And I know how that sounds, Lord, I do. I know plenty of you out there probably turned your dials, leaned in close, and thought, old Jonah's finally lost what little sense he had left. Maybe I have. But I heard her. I heard Mary Ann. Not in my head, not in a dream, not like a memory that sneaks up on you when the room gets too quiet. I heard her voice come through this station, through these wires, through that old board sitting in front of me. And then I heard it from downstairs, Studio B. Now, if you've been listening a while, you know I don't go down there. I don't talk about that place unless I have to. There are doors in this station that ought to stay shut. There are rooms that remember too much. And Studio B remembers me. But after the broadcast ended, after the tubes cooled and the tower light outside went from red to that sickly dark glow it gets right before the woods start moving, I sat right here, didn't move, couldn't. A grown man, old enough to know better, sitting in a chair with his hand on a coffee mug that had gone stone cold, listening to the woman he buried call my name from beneath the floorboards. I locked that basement door a long time ago, put a chair in front of it, told myself there wasn't nothing down there but dust, old equipment, and things better left alone. But tonight I think I'm gonna have to open it. Before I do though, we still got a broadcast to keep. That's the rule in this place. The signal stays alive, or the dark gets brave. So if you're out there driving some lonely county road, or sitting up late with the porch light on, or listening under the covers with one earbud in and one ear tuned to the hallway, stay with me. Don't turn that dial. Tonight's story comes from a listener who says there are some things that follow a man home, even after he thinks he's left them behind. And after what I heard coming from Studio B, I'm starting to believe there ain't no such thing as leaving anything behind. You're listening to the Midnight Holler, broadcasting from Waint Radio, where the road ends and the dark answers back.
Zoom H4n recorders, check. Camera bodies, check. Lenses, adapters, check. Drone and gimbal, Check. ND filters, batteries, SD cards, check, check, check. Aperture light storm, light dome, and C-stands, check. Media pass for faster boarding? Definite check. No matter what I was filming, I always went through my checklist. And typically there is always one thing I'd usually forget anyway. Sometimes it's just a reflector. Hopefully it's nothing mission critical, like showing up to a CEO interview video and forgetting the teleprompter. But that's a horror story in itself. As a videographer, you carry so much gear that when you go to weddings and you see that photographer with his or her small camera bag and dual camera strap rigged to their body, well, you get a little jealous. I'm getting a little ahead of myself, sorry. My name is Caleb Mercer, and for the first 5 years of my career, I filmed people pretending that they were not terrified. That is to say that I filmed weddings mostly. You'd be surprised how much fear there is at a wedding. It hides itself under perfume and rented tuxedos, under buttercream frosting and champagne fizz. It lives in the bride's white-knuckled grip on her bouquet, while her father whispers, "You okay, honey?" It flashes across the groom's face the second the music starts, when he realizes the doors are about to open and his life is going to be split cleanly into before and after this day. I was pretty good at catching those moments, I gotta say. After about 55 weddings, you get pretty good at it. I had a Sony on my shoulder, the wireless mic on the officiant, a second camera locked off near the floral arch, and the useful invisibility of a man that people paid not to notice. I filmed a lace dragging through grass, grandmothers crying into napkins, drunk uncles doing finger guns at the lens, oh god, plenty of those, and bridesmaids saying things like, "Oh my god, this lighting is perfect," while standing in the orange glow of a dying Kansas sunset. Blech. After weddings, I moved into corporate gigs. Product launches, training videos, CEO interviews in glass conference rooms where everyone used words like synergy and vertical integration as if they were not begging for death. Oh my god, if I have to hear, "We're moving the needle" one more time. I shot promo reels for banks, dental groups, farm equipment suppliers, and one truly miserable software company that made me film 3 hours of B-roll of people pretending to collaborate around laptops. I did a few film festivals too, little ones, back when my dreams were still big. My short documentary about a town in Nebraska losing its last grain elevator won honorable mention at a festival held in the back of a brewery. For a while, that was enough to make me feel like an artist. Then, Rick called. Rick Donnelly was the first real cameraman I ever knew. Not like wedding reel, not corporate reel, real. He had filmed wildfires in California, floods in Louisiana, riots in Chicago, and more storms than he could count. He was older than me by almost 30 years, with a gray beard, a bad knee, and the calm, irritated manner of a man who had seen too many people panic over the wrong things. He mentored me back when I was 23 and still called every shot cinematic because I didn't know any better. In 2017, a few days before Hurricane Irma made landfall in Florida, Rick called and asked if I wanted to come along as his bee shooter.
"Just run a second camera,"
he said.
"Stay close, keep your batteries dry, and don't be stupid."
I asked if it was safe. He laughed so hard he started coughing. I went, and Hurricane Irma changed something in me. There's a before and after in every life. Sometimes it's a wedding that splits it. Sometimes it's a funeral. For me, it was standing in a Florida street at 3 a.m. with rain flying sideways so hard it felt like handfuls of gravel hitting your face, filming palm trees bend under their crowns nearly touching the pavement. It was hearing transformers pop blue-white in the dark. It was watching the world lose its edges. Power was out for the entire side of that city. Windows were boarded up. Man, it was a different world. I remember Rick shouting over the wind, "You getting this?" And I was. And I knew right then, with water running down my neck and fear ringing like a tuning fork in my bones, that I never wanted to film another corporate retreat ever again. After Irma, I was hooked, addicted. Storm chasing did not make me brave. People think chasers are adrenaline junkies and death wishes and GoPros suction cup to their foreheads. And some are, trust me, but most are not. Most of us are pretty careful, obsessive, Weather map goblins who know the difference between excitement and stupidity, even if we occasionally pretend we don't. I learned radar, I learned storm structure, I learned how to read inflow bands and wall clouds, how to respect roads turning to mud, how to keep the vehicle pointed towards the escape route. I learned that the sky can look sick before it tries to kill you. And I learned that sometimes, when the sirens are going off and everyone else is running for basements, the camera is the best reason to stand still. What a rookie mistake. Another personal failure was thinking the worst thing under a tornado was the actual tornado. I'm going to tell you about this. It was my 10th run, deep in Oklahoma, outside of a town called Bellwether that you wouldn't find on most maps unless you zoom in until the highways become capillaries. It was late May, peak season, the kind of day when the air itself seems spoiled. The morning started bright and humid. By noon, the sky had gone the color of old pewter. The Storm Prediction Center had painted a fat red target over western Oklahoma, and every chaser with gas money and a camera was either already there or racing towards it. Rick was in Texas chasing a separate cell with a news crew, so I was solo that day. I had my old white Tahoe, 2 camera bodies, 3 lenses, a shoulder rig, drone, tripod, weather radio, laptop, power bank, spare clothes, granola bars, and enough bottled water to survive being stranded for a couple days. On the passenger seat sat the dish-mounted camera I used for live streams. It was already rolling. By 4:30, towers were going up to the west. Big cauliflower thunderheads with hard edges, punching into the upper atmosphere like they had a teenage grudge against humanity. The radar showed rotation near a dry line boundary southwest of Bellwether. I dropped south on a county road, gravel popping under my tires, and watched the storm organize in front of me. If you've never seen a supercell in person, I don't really know how to explain the feeling except to say it looks alive in a way clouds are not supposed to look alive. Not like an animal. Bigger, colder than that. Like a thought God had and then regretted. Like the great-grandmother of the Upside Down in Stranger Things. The one that inspired it all. The base lowered. The inflow strengthened. Dust started running across the road in long brown ribbons. I pulled onto the shoulder near a field of winter wheat and got out with my camera. The air had that charged greenish dimness chasers talk about, though green is not quite the right word. It was more like the color of the inside of a bruise. The storm turned slowly above the horizon, striated bands twisting around the mesocyclone. Lightning pulsed inside it, without thunder at first, illuminating the belly of the cloud in purple-white spasms. I remember thinking, wow, this would make a perfect Metallica album cover. Then I saw it, directly in front of me, no mistaking it. I said it out loud. There you are. The camera recorded that, my own voice soft and almost affectionate. 5 minutes later, the tornado touched down. It began as a needle beneath the wall cloud, thin and pale, probing the earth, and then dust rose to meet it. The needle thickened. The condensation funnel reached down, ropey at first, then widening as it crossed a pasture and chewed through a line of cottonwoods. I filmed the whole thing. I could feel my tires rattle beneath me. Funny. That's the first thing I noticed when storm chasing, that nature could pick up your 2-ton vehicle and toss it like a Hot Wheels car if it so desired. The sound came a few seconds later. Not the freight train cliche. Not at first. More like 1,000 flags snapping in a wind tunnel, overlaid with a low metallic moan. The tornado moved northeast, crossing the road maybe a mile ahead of me. I was in a good position, though. Safe enough, good contrast, beautiful structure. I loved the framing, the kind of footage that makes chasers forget to breathe sometimes. Then I saw the truck. It was an old red pickup, half in the ditch on the far side of the road, maybe 200 yards ahead. The driver's door was open, I remember that distinctively. Hazard lights were blinking. I hadn't noticed it before because the tornado had swallowed my attention whole. Then I saw a man stumble out from behind it. He wore jeans and a dark shirt plastered against his body by the rain. He was waving both arms, middle-aged. At first, I thought he was signaling me for help. Then, something rose from the ditch behind him. I quickly switched out to the 200 to 400 millimeter lens. essentially a bird-watching lens that we keep on hand. I zoomed in and racked focus. But there are moments when your mind refuses to focus, not because the image is blurry, it could be tack sharp, but because understanding it would injure you. I saw a shape, pale and slick, unfolding itself from the muddy runoff like something being born wrong. It had long limbs, a back that was hunched a little too high, a head that jerked rather than turned. I didn't notice its eyes, but I did notice its gaping hole for a mouth, pitch black against a pale white body. It didn't seem to struggle against the wind and rain. It just seemed to get taller and taller, until it just engulfed him. Double his size, double his height. I didn't really know what I was looking at. Then the man tried to run. He made it 3 steps before the thing took him, and it moved fast. That's the part the footage never captures right. I have watched the clip more times than I should, frame by frame, slowing it down until motion becomes a series of lies. Even then, it looks impossible, even when shot at 60 FPS and converted to a 5 FPS timeline, even with the frame blendering on, even with all the plugins at my disposal, even at 4K resolution. One frame, the man is running. The next, the thing is on his back. And then the next, they're both in the ditch. The tornado churned behind him, tearing sheet metal from a barn. You could literally hear it in the background faintly. Rip. I stood beside my Tahoe with rain plastering me and filmed a creature that was now eating a man's face. I didn't even realize that's what it was doing at first. From where I stood through the lens, it looked like an animal attack. A big dog, maybe. A coyote gone rabid. Some storm-thrown hallucination. My brain offered me explanations the way a panicked clerk throws papers at a fire. And then the man screamed. I had heard people scream before. I heard a bride scream one time when a wasp got under a reception tent. A groomsman once broke his ankle during a sparkler send-off and screamed until the DJ cut the music. In Florida, during Irma, I heard a woman scream when a live oak came down through her roof. This wasn't like any of that. This was a scream being shortened. It started as a human sound and ended wet and crunchy. The thing bent over him. Its shoulders pumped. Its head made small, eager movements. The man's legs kicked once, kicked twice, and then stopped. My camera stayed on them the whole time. I don't know why I didn't lower it. I couldn't. I was frozen there in fear. I wish I could tell you I ran to help him. Wish I could tell you that there was a better man than the one standing there filming death because the red tally light was on and the world had become unreal for a moment. But I just kept recording. I think I feel the most guilty about that. It's what returns to me in my nightmares. Those 5 seconds or so of just standing there. The tornado passed behind them and crossed into open land. Rain wrapped the road. Debris ticked against my Tahoe. I could hear myself breathing, shallow and fast. Everything seemed like it was in slow motion, muted. Then the thing looked up. It looked directly at me. Through the rain, through the lens, across 200 yards of storm-dark road, it looked directly into my camera. Its face was narrow and smooth except for the mouth. What an ungodly sight. Too wide, too soft, red, black, and shining. The man's blood covered it from chin to throat. Something pale hung between its teeth. Then I swear to God it smiled. I know animals don't smile. I know that. I've had people tell me that over and over, usually after 2 beers and the discovery that I have no patience for their opinions. Dogs bare teeth, chimps grimace, coyotes gape, but most animals do not smile. This thing was smiling at me, as if on cue. Then the rain thickened. It got real hazy for a moment. I wiped my eyes, and it was gone. I didn't stick around. I drove away like the devil had put his hand on my back. I did not stop until I reached a gas station 20 miles east. A low brick building with 2 pumps, a flickering sign, and a teenage cashier who looked up from her phone as I came through the door, dripping rainwater and shaking so badly I knocked over a cardboard display of beef jerky. "You okay?" she asked. "No," I said. That was all I could manage. I locked myself in the restroom and watched the clip on my camera's tiny screen. At first, the footage looked like every storm chase video I'd ever shot. Bad light, heavy rain, shaky framing, the tornado doing its terrible work in the background. Then the truck, then the man, then the thing in the ditch. On the small screen, it was worse. Reality shrunk down to 3 inches and became undeniable. I zoomed in. The image pixelated, but not enough. I saw the thing's arms, too long for its body, elbows bent slightly backwards, fingers splayed in the mud on either side of the man's head. No fur, no clothing, skin the color of spoiled milk. Then I saw it pull the man's face upward like someone lifting a wet cloth. I saw it sink its teeth into flesh. I dropped the camera in the sink. For maybe 10 minutes I sat on the closed toilet lid with my hands over my ears, though the video had no sound anymore because I had stopped playing it. I was rocking back and forth, unable to control myself. Someone knocked once. "Sir?" the cashier called. "Do you need, medical attention?" I almost said yes. Instead, I just shouted out, "I'm fine." That's the most common lie in the English language, I think. I tried pulling myself together as much as I could, avoided eye contact with her on the way out. Once I was outside, I called Rick from the parking lot. He picked up on the 4th ring. Wind battered his end of the line.
You alive?
He said. "Rick, I filmed something."
Yeah, kid. You always film something.
"No, Rick, I filmed something bad." There was a pause. Rick had known me long enough to hear what was under my voice.
Where you at, kid?
I told him.
Send me the clip.
I don't want to.
Caleb.
I don't want to look at it again. His voice changed then, softened under the gravel.
Send me the clip and stay where you're at.
So I sent it. 15 minutes later, he called back. He did not open with disbelief. That was when I got truly scared. His tone wasn't necessarily casual, but it was normal enough to make me start questioning everything.
Did anyone else see this?
He asked. I don't know.
Did you report it?
Report it to who? What do I say? There's a dead man in a ditch and something eating his face?
You say there's a possible fatality after the tornado.
No, Rick. I left him.
But you were in an active storm environment.
I left him, Rick. I began choking up. My voice cracked. Rick breathed through his nose. A deep breath. I could picture him now, rubbing his beard with thumb and forefinger.
Listen to me, kid. Call it in. Give a location. Then copy that footage to 3 places.
Why?
Because if this is real, somebody's gonna want it gone.
And that sounded insane. By the end of the week, it sounded optimistic. I called 911 and reported seeing an injured man near a red pickup on County Road 19 west of Bellwether after the tornado. I didn't mention the thing, obviously. Cowardice, maybe. Common sense, maybe. There's a thin wall between those rooms, you know. The dispatcher asked me if I was still on the scene. I said no. She asked why. I told her storm conditions forced me to move. I mean, that was technically true, right? They ended up finding the truck, but they didn't find the man. That news came from a deputy named Laird, who called me in the next morning. He had my number because dispatch had mine. He asked what I had seen, so I gave him the clean version. Red pickup, male subject, possible injury, tornado nearby, heavy rain, low visibility. Any other vehicles? He asked. Not that I saw. Any animals? My mouth went dry. What kind of animals? I'm asking you, son. No, I said. Silence. And then he said, Are you sure about that? I looked across my motel room at the camera bag sitting on the bed like a guilty dog. I'm sure. Deputy Laird thanked me and hung up. 10 minutes later, Rick called.
Don't talk to anyone else without me.
Well, good morning to you too, Rick.
I mean it.
What's going on?
I sent the clip to a guy I know at a station in Tulsa, off the record, strictly. He called me back and told me to never send it to him again.
Why?
Said 2 men came by asking about it soon after. I guess he was on a public Wi-Fi when I sent it.
What men?
He didn't know. Not local cops, not feds, he thought. Private, maybe.
I sat on the edge of the bed. The motel air conditioner rattled beneath the window. Outside, a family loaded suitcases into a minivan as if the world had not tilted overnight. Everything appeared so normal out there. In my crappy one-bedroom motel, I still felt like I never left a storm. Rick said.
Did you back it up?
Yes. That was protocol, of course.
How many copies?
3.
Make 5.
Rick, you're scaring me. You never asked for 5 copies.
Good. This should scare you.
Here is where the story could have ended if it had been smart. I could have handed the footage to law enforcement, packed my gear, gone home, and spent the rest of my life filming ribbon cuttings and pretending I did not sometimes wake up hearing that shortened scream. But the camera had ruined me long before the creature did. The camera teaches you that anything unseen is unfinished. It whispers that proof is the only form of truth that matters. It tells you, over and over, that if something horrible happens and you do not record it clearly, then the horror is partly your fault. The clip was bad. Too much rain, too much shake. The thing was visible, yeah, but not enough. Not enough for news, not enough for science, not enough for the world. People would definitely call it a hoax. Call it a dog, call it a starving calf, CGI, AI, storm debris, a tweaker, a demon, a viral marketing stunt. They would argue until the dead man became secondary to the argument. So I made up my mind. I needed more. And that is how obsession begins. Not with madness, but with the feeling that one more answer will somehow save you. We found out later that the dead man's name was Earl Hannity. I found that out from a missing persons post on Facebook. His sister put it up 2 days after the tornado. All caps. Missing after storm. Earl Hannity. Last seen near Bellwether. Red 1994 Ford F-150. Please call if you know anything. There is a photo. Earl sitting on a porch holding a beer, sunburned and smiling. He looked like every man who had ever helped another man move a couch and refused gas money afterwards. The comments were full of prayers, phone numbers, and people asking if anyone had checked hospitals. I stared at Earl's face for a long time. Then I opened my editing software and looked at the frame where he no longer had one. Rick drove up the next evening. He found me in the motel room surrounded by gear, empty coffee cups, and printed maps taped to the wall. I had marked the tornado path, the truck location, nearby creeks, abandoned farmhouses, culverts, drainage ditches, and cell towers. I had audio waveforms open in my laptop, trying to isolate sounds under the wind. Rick stood in the doorway and said, "You look like Jack Torrance with a media kit." "Don't start with me, Rick." "I'm starting immediately. This is how I start." He came in, shut the door, and looked at the maps. "You planning to hunt this thing?" "No, just document it." "That's a prettier word for the same stupid thing." "I saw it, Rick." "I know." "No, you watched the clip. I saw it. It knew I was there." Rick's face did something small at that, the tightening around the eyes. "What do you mean, knew?" "It looked at me." "You mean it looked towards the camera?" "No, it looked at me." He sat on the second bed, which creaked beneath him. He looked older than he had during Irma, older than he had at any fire line, any flooded street. "Caleb," he said. "When I was shooting wildfires back in '09, I watched a man run back into a burning house because he thought he heard his dog. It wasn't his dog. It was the house coming apart. Heat does things to sound, and fear does things to sight. Storms do things to both." "Are you telling me I imagined it?" "I'm telling you the human brain is a drunk projectionist in a burning theater." I turned my laptop towards him and played the clip again. We watched it in silence. The tornado, the truck, Earl running, the thing rising, the attack, and then the look, the smile. Rick's mouth tightened. I paused on the last clear frame. "Tell me that's storm debris," I said. "I'd love to hear that, Rick. Tell me something that makes sense. Anything. Give me a reason to sleep a little better at night, please. He didn't. He couldn't. The investigation took over 4 days. That's what I call it now because a period of voluntary self-destruction is harder to fit into a conversation. Rick and I went back to the scene in daylight. County Road 19 had been reopened, though utility crews still worked along parts of it. The tornado had carved a ragged path through fields and farmsteads, scattering insulation and fences and wrapping sheet metal around trees. The air smelled of mud, splintered wood, and wet wheat. Earl's truck was gone, towed as evidence or junk. Only the ditch remained. I stood where I had filmed from and raised the camera, matching the angle. The distance looked shorter in daylight, which made me feel worse. 200 yards is far until you realize you heard a man die from there. We crossed the road. The ditch was full of muddy water and torn grass. Search crews had trampled the banks. Orange flags marked debris, a piece of taillight, a ball cap, a strip of denim. Rick crouched near a culvert half hidden by weeds. Caleb. Hey, Caleb. I came over. Inside the culvert, just beyond the reach of daylight, something had scratched the concrete. Not random marks, not storm debris. It was long intentional lines. 5 of them parallel, gouged deep enough to show fresh pale aggregate beneath the old gray surface. Rick aimed his flashlight deeper. The culvert ran under the road and opened up into a drainage channel on the other side. In the mud at the bottom was a footprint, almost human. It had a heel. It had the suggestion of a ball and arch, but the toes were long, spread wide, and tipped with punctures where claws had entered into the mud. The whole print was nearly 16 inches from heel to longest toe. Rick took a photograph. Because Rick was a cameraman too, you know. We followed the drainage channel east. It ran behind a ruined farmhouse the tornado had opened like a dollhouse. Pink insulation hung from the rafters. A refrigerator lay on its back in the yard with its door ripped off. Family photographs were plastered in mud along the fence line. The channel dipped into a stand of cottonwoods. That's where the smell started. At first it was just dead livestock. Tornadoes do awful things to animals, but this was sharper, older, mixed with something chemical, like meat left in a hot plastic bag in the summer. Flies ticked against my face. Rick pulled his shirt collar over his nose. We should leave, Caleb. Just a little bit farther. Yeah, every idiot in history said that. A little farther in, we found the first bone. It was a rib. Human or animal, I couldn't really tell. Clean at one end, splintered at the other, then another. Then a mat of hair caught on a branch, dark hair threaded with gray. Rick said my name in a way that meant stop. I didn't listen. I don't think I could have at that moment. The cottonwoods opened into a low depression, hidden from the road by storm-fallen limbs. The ground was churned to black mud. Bones lay everywhere. It wasn't a pile as much as it was a place, like something had been eating there for a long time, and we just found its lair. I saw deer skulls, coyote jaws, bird wings, raccoon tails, and things I recognized only as pieces. Some bones were old and greenish, some were fresh. Near the center of the depression lay Earl Hannity's left boot. I peeked in it, because I'm an idiot. His foot was still in it. I backed into a tree and almost fell. Rick caught my shoulder. "We're done," he said. Then my camera beeped. Low battery. I didn't even realize it was on. It was a small sound, electric, harmless. From somewhere deep in the cottonwoods, another beep answered. Same tone, same interval. My camera beeped again. The answering beep came closer. Rick whispered, "Tell me that's another camera." I looked at my battery indicator, red, flashing. Beep, beep, from the trees.
Beep.
Then a voice said,
"Low battery."
It was my voice, not similar, but mine. Flat and tinny, like playback from a camera speaker.
"Low battery."
It said again. Rick grabbed my arm hard enough to hurt. We left. We didn't run until we reached the road. That was Rick's discipline. Walk until running helps, and then run. Back at the Tahoe, I looked once over my shoulder. Then I saw it. Something pale stood in the cottonwoods, half hidden behind a split trunk. It was peeking out at me. I could only see half its face, its leg, and a hand. That night, I watched my own footage from the depression. The creature wasn't visible, not once. But if my audio had captured something beneath the wind and flies... At timestamp 17:42, just after I filmed the bones, Rick said,
"We're done."
3 seconds later, very faint, you could hear another voice say,
"We're done."
My voice. At 18:09, while we were leaving, something whispered close to the microphone.
"Better light next time."
I played that part for Rick. He got up, went to the motel room, and threw up. We should have gone to the police then. We should have given them everything. But when Rick called Deputy Laird, the line rang twice and went dead. When we tried the sheriff's office, a woman told him Deputy Laird was unavailable. When will he be available? Rick asked.
I don't have that information.
Is he on duty?
I don't have that information.
Rick looked at me as she repeated herself a third time, voice polite and empty as a waiting room. So we took the next best option, and we called a journalist that Rick trusted. Her name was Dana Whitcomb. She worked investigative pieces out of Oklahoma City and had the exhausted voice of someone who survived on coffee and other people's secrets. Rick sent her a still from the culvert print, not the creature footage. She called back in 8 minutes.
"Where'd you get this, Rick?"
Rick looked at me. I nodded, and he told her enough of the story. Dana drove to Bellwether the next morning. She arrived in a dusty Subaru with 2 phones, a DSLR, and no patience for being lied to. We met at a diner off the highway, a place with cracked vinyl booths and a waitress who called everyone sweetheart with dead-eyed consistency. Dana watched the clip on my laptop. She didn't scream. She didn't even gasp. She just pushed her coffee away. "Play it again," she said. I did. When it ended, she asked, "Who else has seen this clip?" "Just us," Rick said. "And one TV guy in Tulsa. Maybe whoever visited him." Dana frowned. "What visitors?" Rick told her. She took notes. Her handwriting was tiny and violent. Then she said, "I hate to break it to you guys, but this isn't the first one." The diner seemed to dim around us. I felt like I was floating. I said, "First what?" She looked out the window towards the road. A cattle truck rolled by, chrome flashing in the sun. "Disappearance after severe weather," she said. "Mangled remains or no remains. Rural areas, usually after tornadoes, major hail events, sometimes hurricanes. Official explanations vary. Animal predation, flood washout, traumatic storm injury, but there are patterns." Rick leaned back. "How many?" "That I know of? 11 in 6 years. My stomach sank. Dana tapped the laptop. "This thing you filmed? I've heard descriptions before, but I've never seen footage." "Descriptions from who?" "People nobody believed." We spent the next 6 hours in her motel room building a timeline. A ranch hand went missing after a tornado near Woodward. A volunteer firefighter found faceless in a flooded drainage ditch outside Enid. 2 storm spotters vanished near Pratt, Texas, their vehicle discovered with all cameras wiped clean. A woman in Missouri who called 911 during a derecho and said there was a white man crawling out of the rain before the line was cut off. A deputy in Arkansas who shot himself 3 days after responding to a storm-related fatality, leaving a note that said only, "It used my son's voice." Dana had files, audio clips, redacted reports, interviews, photographs blurred by bad light and worse circumstances. The creature was always seen near violent weather, always around damaged places, always where sound was confused, visibility poor, people scattered, records incomplete. It did not make the storms, at least we didn't think so, but it did follow them, like a scavenger behind a plow. By midnight, the room smelled of coffee, sweat, and printer ink. Maps covered the bed. Dana had pinned incidents along storm tracks and road networks. Rick stood by the window, watching the parking lot. I was staring at a photograph from Missouri. It showed claw marks on the hood of an ambulance. 5 parallel gouges. But why faces? I asked. Dana looked up. What? Earl, the firefighter, others, why does it eat faces? Nobody answered. And then Rick said, maybe it's not eating. I looked at him. He still faced the window. Maybe it's learning. The air conditioner clicked off. The silence that followed had a shape to it, I swear to God. At 12:47, my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it ring. Dana whispered, don't answer it. It stopped. Rick's phone rang. Unknown number. He stared at it until it stopped. And then, right on cue, Dana's phone rang. Unknown. She silenced it. And for a moment, nothing happened. Then, all 3 phones rang at once. The screens lit up the motel room blue-white. Unknown, unknown, unknown. I couldn't help it. I felt the urge to answer it, so I did. The speaker clicked on. For a second, there was only static. Then, a voice. Caleb? Dana went pale. Rick whispered, turn it off. I couldn't move. The voice was thick, wet, and pleading. Caleb, I can't see. My hand shook. I can't see without my face. It was Earl's voice. Rick grabbed the phone and threw it against the wall. It broke apart, battery skittering under the dresser. Dana's phone kept ringing. Rick's too. Dana wanted to publish the whole story immediately. Rick just wanted to disappear. I wanted to sleep for a year and then wake up stupid. Instead, we compromised in the worst possible way. We decided to get one more piece of evidence. Not footage from 200 yards away in rain, not audio whispers. Something undeniable. Clear video, multiple angles, metadata intact, uploaded automatically to cloud storage. Dana had a source in emergency management who quietly gave her access to reports from the next expected severe weather setup. An ugly forecast was set to kick off storms along the Kansas-Oklahoma border in 48 hours. Chasers would be out, spotters too. Plenty of noise, plenty of chaos, plenty of places for a storm scavenger to feed. We chose a location near an abandoned farmstead north of Blackwell, Oklahoma, where 2 previous disappearances had occurred within 10 miles after severe storms. The property sat near a creek, with culverts under the road and a storm cellar half collapsed behind the house. This thing seems to like ditches, Dana said. It also likes cover, Rick corrected. It just likes storms, I said. Rick looked at me. It likes cameras now too, apparently. I joked. As long as it's not a cannon shooter. We rigged the farmstead like a trap, though trap is too generous. A trap implies control. We had no control. We placed trail cams in the cottonwoods along the creek, 2 GoPros under the porch eaves, a low light camera inside the empty farmhouse looking through a broken window, my main camera on tripod in a hayloft of a leaning barn with a long lens pointed towards the creek. Dana set up a live stream upload through bonded cellular. Rick rigged motion lights powered by portable batteries. The sky darkened while we worked. Storms built west of us by late afternoon, tall and mean, their anvils spreading out east like bruises under skin. Weather radio crackled with watches, and then warnings, alerts, sirens. Tornadoes were possible, large hail likely, damaging winds. The air grew heavy, birds vanished. Cattle in a distant pasture bunched near a fence and began bawling. At 6:13 p.m., the first warning went out for the storm west of Blackwell. At 6:27, rotation tightened. At 6:39, we saw the wall cloud. Rick stood beside me in the barn hayloft, watching through binoculars. Classic, he muttered. I was behind the camera. You sound annoyed, Rick. I am. It's beautiful, kid, and I hate that. For that short moment, we both chuckled. Dana was in the farmhouse with a radio and laptop, monitoring the feeds. Her voice came through my earpiece. Trail cam 3 just glitched. I checked the tablet mounted beside my camera. The feed from the creek blinked static and then came back. Nothing. Probably signal, Rick said. Motion light 1 snapped on. White glare flooded the creek bank. Empty. Then motion light 2. And then 3. Each one farther down the creek. Something was moving through the trees. My mouth went dry. Tears began welling up in my eye sockets. Rick, I see it. The storm's inflow wind pushed through the barn, making the old boards groan. Dust lifted from the floor in little spinning ghosts. In the distance, the wall cloud lowered. Dana said, Trail cam 2 has movement. Over. On the tablet, a pale blur crossed the frame. Too fast. Can you rewind? I asked. Not cleanly. Caleb, there's something else. What? The low-light camera in the house just switched off. Rick pressed his hand to his ear. Dana, say again. No answer. Dana? Static. Then Dana's voice came through, strained. It's in the house. Rick and I froze. What do you mean, in the house? I asked. From my position in the hayloft, I could see the farmhouse 50 yards away. Its windows were black. The front door hung open exactly as it had all day. Dana whispered, I just heard Rick downstairs. Rick looked at me. He was beside me. In my earpiece, Dana breathed hard. It said my name. Rick grabbed the shotgun he had reluctantly brought and not told me about until that morning. I'm going over there. No, I said. Then we heard a scream in the distance. Dana's scream. The sound cut off. Rick was already moving. I followed with the camera because I was a cursed idiot and because some part of me believed the lens could keep distance between me and what was happening. We climbed down from the hayloft as thunder rolled overhead. Rain began in fat, widely spaced drops that struck the dirt like thrown coins from the heavens. Halfway to the farmhouse, the tornado siren in Blackwell began to wail. A thin gray funnel descended beyond the fields. I pointed the camera towards it automatically. Rick shouted, Caleb! I swung back. He was at the farmhouse steps. Behind him, in the open doorway, Dana stood perfectly still. Her head was bowed. Dana? Rick said. She raised her face, and then we realized it was not Dana. It was wearing Dana's skin, and it was wearing it badly. That's not exactly right. See, it hadn't taken her skin, but it took her expression, her posture somehow, her shape in the poor light. But the proportions it got were all wrong, stretched vertically. Shoulders too high, arms too long. Its face was smooth and pale, but it had Dana's eyes placed in it, like it was borrowing her eyes as buttons. And then its mouth opened. Dana's voice came out of it.
Rick, help me.
Rick fired. The blast hit the doorway and blew splinters from the frame. That thing folded sideways. It seemed impossibly fast. Then it pulled back into the interior, vanishing into the dark. Its moves were jagged and rough, like a puppeteer holding up his puppet with strings. Dana screamed again from inside the house. This time we could tell it was the real Dana. Rick ran in. I followed. The farmhouse smelled of mold, dust, and rot. Rain hammered down on the roof. The earpiece in my ear squealed static. Now I could hear Dana somewhere below us. It was coming from under the floor. The cellar, Rick said. We found the cellar door open in the kitchen, half hidden under fallen plaster. It was open. Darkness breathed up from below. I hesitated for a moment, staring down into a black pit. Dana called out weakly, "Don't come down." Rick looked at me. Then, something else from deeper in the cellar, in Dana's voice, but closer, said,
"Come down."
The house shook as thunder detonated overhead. Outside, the tornado siren wailed and wailed. Rick whispered to me, "Back out, kid." Suddenly, as we both stared down into that black pit, a hand came through the cellar opening and grabbed his ankle. It was pale, long-fingered, and slick with mud. Rick fired downwards. A blast of light emitted. The hand released. He fell backwards onto me, and we both hit the floor suddenly. The shotgun skidded away from us. From below came a sound like a child laughing into a mouthful of water. And then we heard Dana shout, "Run!" So we ran. We made it out the front door as the first debris began to fall around the farmstead. Leaves, sticks, pieces of insulation. The tornado was closer now, crossing the field southwest of us. It had widened into a dark cone wrapped in dust. My Tahoe was parked near the barn, 50 yards. That was all. That thing came out of the farmhouse behind us, and it was running on all fours. It was no longer pretending to be Dana. In the open, under the storm green sky, I saw it clearly for the first time. And Jesus Christ. You can think that this entire story was written by AI, which would be safer, honestly. I don't even blame you. But what I saw left a deep, lasting impression onto my soul. It had the general layout of a human being, the way a scarecrow does. Head, torso, arms, legs. But everything had been pulled too far back. Its spine arched under what we could now see was translucent skin, not pale. Its ribs flared and flexed as it breathed. Its hands were huge. The fingers ended in black nails curved from digging. Its face was blank except for that mouth, that awful, God-forsaken mouth, which looked soft enough to change shape around any voice it wanted. Across its chest and throat were patches of darker tissue, arranged like scars. And then I realized, no, it wasn't scars. It was faces. Bits of them, stretched impressions. I could see Earl's sunburned cheek. I saw a woman's lip, an old man's eyebrow, human features pressed under its skin as if trying to surface from beneath ice. And then Rick saw it too. He said, "Oh, Jesus." The thing began to speak with all of them.
Better light.
Then it charged. Rick shoved me toward my Tahoe. I dropped the camera. I actually dropped it. For the first time in my adult life, the camera became less important than my legs. We sprinted through rain and flying dust. The thing hit the ground behind us in long, slapping strides. It was fast, but not smooth. Its body jerked, overcorrected, folded, and then unfolded. Again, like a puppet, operated by 10 furious hands now. Rick reached the Tahoe first and yanked the passenger door open. "Keys!" I slapped my pockets. Nothing. The damn keys were in the barn. Because of course they were. Because horror does not need imagination when human stupidity is readily available. Rick saw my face. "Barn? Barn." He said a word I will not repeat. The tornado roared closer. We ran for the barn. Behind us, that thing slammed into the Tahoe, hard enough to rock it on its own suspension. Glass shattered, metal screamed. It had expected us to get inside of it. It had learned that much. The barn doors hung open. Inside, the air was full of dust and hay and the electric smell of lightning. My keys lay on a crate beneath the tripod. I lunged for them. From outside, the thing hit the barn wall. Boards exploded inwards. Rick grabbed the keys before I did and threw them to me. "Go!" What about Dana?" He looked toward the farmhouse. Through rain, I saw Dana crawl from the cellar hatch outside, behind the house. Somehow she was still alive. I could see smoke literally coming from her body. She was hurt, but somehow still moving. She dragged herself towards the old storm cellar built into the hill. Then the creature looked back, and I could see that it saw her too. It began to turn. Rick raised the shotgun. "Hey!" The thing looked back, and Rick fired it into its face. The shot tore away part of its mouth. There was no blood, but there was a black-red fluid that spilled down its chest. and beneath the damaged tissue I saw teeth growing in layers. It screamed in Rick's voice. Not a copy, but a theft of it. Rick staggered as if slapped. The thing lunged and it took him through the barn wall. 1 second he was there, and the next, the boards burst outward and he was gone into the rain. I shouted his name. Rick! From outside came the wet sound of impact. Then Rick screamed. I ran toward the hole in the wall. I don't know what I was trying to do. Rescue, suicide, some meaningless gesture between the two. And then the barn roof began to lift. The tornado had reached the farm. Oh shit, that's right. There's a tornado outside. Pressure changed so fast my ears popped. The world became sound, not loud, not total sound, but the barn groaned around me, nails shrieking from beams. Hay spiraled upwards. The tripod toppled. My abandoned camera slid across the floor. Through the broken wall, I saw Rick on the ground with the creature all over him. It had its mouth pressed to his face. His hands beat against his shoulders. The tornado moved between them, black and enormous, swallowing trees. I grabbed the shotgun that Rick had dropped and raised it. The creature looked up at me with Rick's eyes beneath its skin. Rick's voice came from its ruined mouth.
Get the shot, kid.
I fired. The blast struck the creature in the throat. It reared back. And then the tornado took the barn. As I felt myself struggle against the wind and the impact of the tornado, the roof vanished first, peeled upward into the spinning dark. Walls burst outward. The floor seemed to drop away beneath me. Something hit my shoulder. Something else struck my head. I remember weightlessness then. I remember rain, straw, a view of the farmhouse rotating where the sky should have been. And then I just remember mud. Silence didn't come after that. People say that sometimes in these stories, but silence is too clean. What came after that was a broken ringing, rain, distant alarms, and the small creaks of things settling into their final positions. I woke up in a field. The storm had moved on. Evening light leaked beneath the black edge of the clouds, turning everything copper and gray. The farmstead was gone. Completely. The barn was scattered across a quarter mile in front of me. The farmhouse had collapsed into itself. Trees stood stripped and twisted. My left wrist was broken. I had 3 ribs cracked. Scalp was split. Shoulder dislocated. Later, they told me I had a concussion and internal bruising. At the time, all I knew was pain and the taste of dirt. Apparently, the tornado had picked me up like a toddler and thrown me 50 feet into the air across the property. Slowly, I began walking back. I found Dana near the storm cellar, still alive. She had gotten inside before the worst of it. The door had caved partly in, pinning down her leg, but she was conscious. And when she saw me, she started crying. I barely recognized her at first. She was covered in dirt and soot. "Rick?" she asked. I looked towards the field. There was no sign of Rick. We waited for rescue while lightning flickered east and the last rain fell softly. At some point, I realized my phone was gone, my main camera gone, my Tahoe completely destroyed. The bonded upload rig gone with the barn. Everything gone. Almost. One trail cam survived. Search and rescue found it wedged in a drainage culvert 2 days later. Its casing was cracked, lens scratched, but the memory card, somehow, impossibly, was intact. It had recorded 9 minutes before the tornado hit. At first, the footage showed only the creek bank under motion-like glare, rain slanting, grass whipping, a plastic feed sack caught on a branch. And then the creature entered the frame. Clear. Close. It dragged Rick by one leg, and he was alive. I did not know this until I watched the footage in the hospital with Dana beside me and 2 federal agents standing near the door pretending they were not federal agents. The creature dragged him to the culvert and crouched over him. Its ruined mouth hung open. Its throat wound opened and closed like a second mouth. Rick lifted his head. He looked directly at the trail cam as if he knew I was watching. His face was bloody, but still his. He said, "Caleb, don't." The creature covered his mouth with one hand. Then it leaned close to him, not biting yet. Listening, learning. Its throat moved, and Rick's voice came out.
"Caleb, don't."
Then my voice.
"Better light next time."
Then Dana's.
"Publish it."
Then Earl's.
"I can't see."
The creature looked into the trail cam. It smiled with what remained of its mouth. The last 7 minutes show only the inside of the culvert. Dark concrete, rainwater running. But the audio continued. There were sounds that haunt me and probably will haunt me for the rest of my life. I will tell you that Rick did not scream for long. The agents took the memory card. Dana had already copied it, so had I. Rick taught me that much. The official story was simple. Tornado outbreak, multiple casualties. Veteran storm photographer Rick Donnelly killed by debris. Investigative journalist Dana Whitcomb injured while documenting storm damage. Videographer Caleb Mercer critically injured. No mention of Earl Hannity beyond ongoing missing person status. No mention of the farmstead footage, the phone calls, the faces under the creature's skin, or the thing that crawled behind storms and learned people by eating them. Dana tried to publish her story, and her editor killed it. Then her laptop was stolen from her apartment. Then her car was searched while she was inside a gas station. Then a man in a gray suit visited her mother in Tulsa and asked whether Dana had been under emotional strain lately. She stopped trying after that. Not because she was afraid, but because she was smart enough to stay alive. I'm not that smart. I still had the footage. Not all of it, not enough, never enough. But I had copies hidden in places I won't name. Cloud drives under dead accounts. Hard drives mailed to people who don't know what they have. One micro SD card sealed in plastic and taped behind a framed wedding photo in my hallway. You know, the usual hiding places. I quit storm chasing for 8 months. I even tried weddings again. The first one was in Wichita. Pretty church, blue flowers. Groom cried when the bride came down the aisle. That's always a great shot. During the reception, a storm rolled in north of town. Nothing severe, just summer thunderheads flashing beyond the windows. The DJ announced the first dance. I lifted my camera, though I felt dead inside. Through the viewfinder, I saw the bride and groom turning slowly beneath string lights. Then lightning flickered. For one frame, in the dark glass of the reception hall window, I saw something pale standing outside in the rain. Not pale, but translucent. Long arms, high shoulders, wide, soft mouth. I lowered the camera. Nothing was there. The next morning, I sold half my wedding gear. I do not chase the way I used to. I do not live stream. I do not shout at funnels like they are sporting events. I do not stand in the open longer than I have to. But when the sky turns that sick green-gray and radar hooks begin to curl across the plains, I still feel the pull. Not excitement, but responsibility maybe, or an infection. There are things that live in the margins of disaster, things that count on the noise, things that know a storm can erase tracks, scatter witnesses, break cameras, and make every impossible death look like bad luck. I have seen one, and it saw me back. Last spring, a tornado touched down near a little town in northern Kansas. I was not chasing that day. I was at home, editing a harmless promotional video for a roofing company, which would be funny if I still had room in me for that kind of humor. My phone rang. Unknown number. I stared at it until it stopped. A voicemail appeared, and for an hour I didn't play it. But then I did. And at first there was only wind, not phone static, but wind, big wind, tornado wind. You learn to identify the difference. Then Rick's voice said,
"Hey kid, you getting this?"
I stopped breathing. In the background, something wet clicked its tongue. Rick laughed softly. Not his real laugh, but a copied one, a learned one. Then my own voice whispered from very close to the microphone.
Come closer, Caleb.
The message ended. I sat in my office until the sun went down, listening to the house settle around me, and then I opened the radar. The storm line was moving east across Kansas. I watched the reds and purples bloom on the screen. I grabbed my camera case. Zoom, H4n recorders, check. Camera bodies, check. Lenses and adapters, check. Drone and gimbal, check. My sanity? I'm not so sure anymore.
Well, that's where we're going to leave it for tonight. I don't know if you believe in men in black, in monsters who hide in hurricanes, or anything else mentioned in this story. But I'll tell you this, Rick is a real person. I left out his last name, but took the time to look up his obituary. I found him clear as day. There's a funny thing about stories like this. Folks always think the first strange thing is the worst of it. The sound in the woods, the shape in the window, the voice on the line that ought not know your name. But that ain't usually where the trouble starts. That's just where it introduces itself. And I don't mind telling you folks, tonight's broadcast put a cold place in my chest I ain't been able to warm up. Not with coffee, not with the heater rattling in the corner, not even with every light in this old station burning bright enough to make the moths lose their minds against the glass. Because while that story was playing, I heard something downstairs again, deep in Studio B. Not loud, nothing dramatic, just one little sound, a chair leg dragging across the floor. Ain't nobody down there, leastways, nobody that ought to be. And after that, I smelled her perfume, Mary Ann's, faint as a memory, but it was there. Honeysuckle and cold rain. Same as the night she kissed me goodbye. Funny thing, ain't it? How the dead don't always come back screaming. Sometimes they come back sweet. Sometimes they come back sounding like home. And that's what scares me most. So I reckon next time this red tower light starts blinking and the signal finds its way through the hills, we'll press on into what comes next. Until then, keep your radios low and your doors locked proper. Don't answer a voice calling from a room you know is empty. Don't follow lights that show up where no road ought to be. And if you hear an old song coming through the static, best let it play, but don't sing along. You've been listening to the Midnight Holler, broadcasting from Waint Radio. I'm Jonah Elias Crow, still here, still keeping the signal warm. And somewhere beneath my feet, Studio B is waiting. Good night, y'all.
Jonah saw a tower light bleeding red against the rain, out beyond the county road where the map forgot its name. Thunder rolled like judgment through the pines and power lines, and the voice inside the static said, Jonah, you're right on time. Oh, the tower keeps on glowing where the black trees bend and lean, and the basement door stays bolted, but it whispers through the screen. He ran from something breathing where no living thing things should be. Now the dead air knows his name down there in old Studio B. He stepped inside that station with his coat soaked to the bone. A calendar said 7 to 6 and the phone had no dial tone. The broadcast room was waiting like it knew he'd come around. Then he heard it from the basement stairs, that low and hungry sound. Oh, the tower keeps on glowing where the black trees bend and lean, and the basement door stays bolted, but it whispers through the screen. He ran from something breathing where no living thing should be. Now the dead air knows his name down there in old Studio B. There were scratches on the concrete, there was frost along the wall. Something in the dark down there had learned his wife's old call. He felt its hand inside his head, cold as a funeral bell. Then he slammed that basement door so hard it shook the floor of hell. He locked it once with iron, he locked it twice with prayer. But every night at midnight, he can feel it listening there. Oh, the tower keeps on glowing, and the signal won't set free. Jonah keeps the mic alive for the thing in Studio B. He ran from something breathing, but it never let him be. Now it taps beneath the floorboards, calling from Studio B. So keep your dial on whining tonight, let no silence cross the line. If Jonah ever leaves that chair, something else goes live at night.